One, you're okay. I'm not sure if we're posted, so if there's three of us, one, you have to leave.
No, I think there's just two here.
Well,
Paige said she wasn't coming.
Thomas could come. He's on his way from Grand Junction, so who knows? He's part of the Water Commission.
No, right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it was him and Thomas.
Yeah.
He might.
Marco usually does. You're okay now. Marco,
He may be on his way. He's driving from Grand Junction.
do you want to sit up here? I can hear you better when you're closer.
Well,
You too, Allison.
We can all move.
All of us could just drag our chairs closer. How's that?
Could you move back a little, though? Oh, Allison.
No.
Could you move back a little?
I don't know.
Thanks.
Why don't you go?
I saw your
we want to sit right in front of the camera.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to pull open the proposed agenda that Paige put out and see how much of that we want to use. I know people are really interested in knowing about our system, and I feel like it's. I might be the only person that's actually read all the reports.
Thank you.
I read all that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Do you know Jeremiah?
You don't have access to JDS's report.
I have only access to what is available to the
Yeah.
public, and I don't know why that wouldn't be.
JDS has not been made available to the public.
Correct. Because
The most
they
recent report, because there were other reports.
they have short reports, but they have a 100-page report, and a lot of it's redacted information because it talks about where PRVs are and springs and things that, like, if there's a malicious act or whatever, we could maybe sabotage our system. Yeah, don't make me mad.
So, what do you want to do your presentation?
I guess, yeah. We'll just start there.
So now we have to go. No, we'll go over here.
Now, I've been wanting to like just do this report and do it well and get everything on here and come up with some real numbers, and then I realized that the board is eager to move projects along, and I get that. So it's not a like, oh, why would you guys make such a big decision, without all the information? But anyway, make a long story short, I worked on this in a couple afternoons just to get some information out there, just to build some context, because we're going to be asking the state for a lot of money really soon, and like, it might be our only shot for the next 5 to 10 years, and we won't want to be like realizing that our sewer system is completely failing us and we have no money and we can't ask the state for more money. I don't know, or rather, we can't afford the loans that they're willing to give us. You guys with me on that? Okay,
Yeah.
So here's our system. You guys know our system. We don't need this little thing here. But all right, this is more or less what the state of our distribution and collection system looks like. I don't know why. Oh, anyway.
I'm going to move closer so I can read that thing.
Yeah. So I went ahead and color coded this based off of priority. So everything that's in green is good. The solid lines are water lines. The dashed lines are sewer lines. What's to note about this? We have PVC, we have steel, we have ductile iron pipe, we have cast iron in our system. Like our steel and cast iron are absolutely corroded. We see that when we have breaks and we pull it out. All right. Right here, right down the middle is basically our main confluence of our water main and our sewer main, and that all
Is that 2nd Street?
That's 3rd Street. And it looks pretty good. It's been revamped recently. I can't give you a date because I don't have that right now. But something to note is all these laterals right here, all these dashed laterals. These are all sewer lines that were installed in the 70s, and they're made out of clay. They're made out of clay pipe. So that's just something to know. Like that infrastructure is leaking. Also, this big old red line over here, those two lines are 15-inch clay pipes that were also installed in the 70s. And they're right by the river. They convey sewer water, and they even go underneath the Sandway Bridge. That's just something to keep in mind. All right. So already we've got households on Doris it's a hit or miss when they jet out that line down there. Sometimes they can clear it, sometimes they have no luck. Apparently there's 245s somewhere in the middle of that. So whoever installed it, they screwed up the fall and they had to correct it with 245s. Another thing to note is there's also cast iron pipe right there that was installed in the 60s. So this area is a good candidate for doing a complete replacement of the sewer, the water line, and the road. And it comes around the corner over to here. This is also cast iron, and that's cast iron there. This is Doris, by the way. So this is Doris, the 100 block. That's the 200 block. And then from Doris to Minnesota, all that stuff is junk. That's just old. It's like, we'll get to the corrosion in a minute. And at any time, feel free to ask questions.
So, on
Yeah.
the clay pipe, if I'm understanding, there's a lot of joints in the clay pipe where they come together. Is there a lot of leakage in those?
So fortunately, the clay pipe is sewer, and so it's not really pressurized.
Okay,
So I don't think it's a lot,
okay.
if any.
Water leaks in, Dave, not out. So-
No, I know that. I just wondered about how much it can leak through the joints in the clay pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. I don't think it's too much. So I just call that out. Like it's something we need to assess.
The big problem on those joints is root intrusion. The roots will get in there and come in those joints.
Right, that's what I was worried about.
Right, and then there's like a household blockage. Okay, and then over here, recently we just discovered that right here at this corner, that's Blackridge Road and 7th Street where they meet. There's the Mormon church is down here, and there's another church here. That water main is leaking, and it's going into the sewer line. We tested the water that's going into the sewer line, and it had chlorine residuals, so we know it's domestic water. We recently had low pressure, and when we went and looked down there, just out of curiosity, it wasn't leaking anymore. So what that's telling us, and later when we talk about water loss analysis, it's telling us that we have some parts of our system, the pressure is so high that it's causing leaks at the joints. And just remember that for later.
Yeah, my house on 3rd and 4th and Delta, it's 94 PSI.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
It should be 55.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really high. And just, I talk about it a little more later, so I'll wait. Now this steel pipe right here, okay, so this is worth reading. The 8-inch steel pipe runs through numerous properties. Many of those properties, the easements aren't even on their plat maps. So it's like, and this map this pipe map isn't even accurate. I know that because we recently did a repair on that line in somebody's field, and the map is like way off. But nevertheless, SGM says it's got 21 years worth of life, but we're seeing ruptures often, and this is an area that Travis said broke a lot. He said the main line it's thin steel walled, it's tar wrapped, and then he's saying, and I pulled this off JDS's report, his commentary on this. So where the pipe was welded but not rewrapped is where it's breaking a lot. So this whole thing right here is like it's been eating up the town budget. I'll just put it that way. You're just constantly fixing that. And because it's steel and there's no cathodic protection, it's probably really corroded. And the idea, what I was understanding was that the town had been working on replacing that with PVC, and they had done some of that, and they were talking about possibly rerouting it along the road instead of through people's properties. I'm not throwing numbers out, I'm just calling out everything that we need to consider. Now, this was a town priority. I'm not sure who, maybe it was Travis who wanted to make this a priority, but this 2-inch line is literally going under all those trailer homes. So in terms of being able to detect a leak, it could be tricky, or those people could lose their entire life savings, with the water rupture, or the town would have to foot the bill or something. It's just something it's just something to be mindful of. It's a 2-inch PVC line. It was put in the 90s. It's not terrible, but it's just unfortunate that's underneath those houses.
Yeah, I know, we ran into that all the way back in the early 2000s and came to the decision just to leave it alone because we
Yeah.
ended up disrupting everybody's lifestyle if we tore out the trailers.
I was thinking.
Put in a new line.
Yeah, put it in another place over there.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Close it off.
Exactly, and it would kind of look like going along the road or
Right,
something
yeah.
like that, and then reattaching them. Now that, like, we don't even have a number on that. That's why we're not just like, let's do it, you know. It's,
This is Lee's Park, right?
Yeah, Lee's Park.
yeah.
And I would suspect you would suggest a similar thing when we were talking about the previous slide. What you were saying, put a new line along the road.
Correct. Just abandon that.
Just abandon it.
Abandon that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. and
That's
then-
Lee's Park and not the trailer? No, because the other
That's Lee's
trailer
Park,
thing.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
It's
actually,
not Bobby and
Real
Mary's.
quick, I can move this map around. That other trailer park,
Yeah.
this line right here, this 8-inch line is brand new. They have good sewer, good line that's feeding them. So just, yeah, so that place is decent. Okay, so this is not our pipe. This is for effect.
I guess you pay attention.
Thank you.
Oh, you seen that here?
Not that bad.
Okay.
But it happens. So what I wanted to call out with this slide is like, we have these cast iron pipes that were installed in the 60s and 70s, mostly more in the 60s, and these are the streets where it still exists, right? And then in this next slide, and Phil could probably tell us more about how corrosion happens, but there's a number of factors. Just pure velocity of water moving through the pipes can cause corrosion, but pH and chemical content and things like that will also cause corrosion.
How
But
old are the cast iron pipes that we have?
60s,
60s?
like they were literally installed in the 60s. And here they are. So again, going back to Doris, that whole area, that's all cast iron. This little orchard also has a terrible road. They also have a handful of lead pigtails. And it goes, and I don't know if this pipe still runs underneath the park, maybe they abandoned it, but definitely right through here, that's all cast iron. 5th Street, which also has crummy roads, and the town's already called that as a priority, that's all cast iron. There's also old sewer that needs to be replaced in there. And then this little area, this is right in front of Nifsis, that's also cast iron.
Where is it?
That's Box Elder between 4th and 5th.
The elementary school.
Yeah, right next to the elementary school.
Okay.
So, in terms of like water quality, like we can lift the moratorium and create more taps, or we can address water quality. It's like it's kind of one or the other with the budget. You know, it's just something to consider. Do we want the best water quality around, or do we just want to be able to build more stuff? Just yeah.
That's a perennial fight we've
I
had.
know.
Yes.
You never should sacrifice quality for quantity.
No.
The trade-off sucks.
Right. We're gonna, yeah.
For the developers that want to come.
Okay, and then so this little slide is like, okay, are there any overlaps of road priorities and plumbing priorities? And yeah, there are. So Orchard, 5th and 3rd, that was a priority. Let me open up this map a little bit. Here's the rating. So it goes worst to best. Worst is red, pink, purple, and I just get stuck with that. It's like, okay, top tier, red, pink, and purple. So yeah, Main Street. I guess Main Street's not really a huge priority. It's working for people. But 5th between Delta and North Fork, the road could use repair. Orchard between 5th and 3rd definitely needs a repair. And then also, again, the 100 block of Doris. That's what we were looking at earlier. That's that first priority project. The road needs work. 2nd Street, Doris to Minnesota. Doris, yeah, over here again, it's kind of off the map. So Doris to Minnesota right here also needs work. And then finally, 4th Street, right here, that's where that 15-inch sewer line is. So there's like, in terms of what I'm thinking of, like, how do we prioritize lines, because there's enough things that need to happen simultaneously, and they're spread out. It's like, how many layers can we address at once? Okay, and this
Can I just ask a quick question?
yeah.
To replace, it'd be like with what, the 4-inch or everywhere, or?
So with it would be PVC, and then we would, you know, I don't think we need 15-inch for that sewer. I think we can get away with like 12. But I don't want to make that call. You know, that would be something that we would just like have an engineer do a basic calc. You know, they would just calc out how much water or sewer needs to go through the pipe during like peak. Something just a note is like, as we swap out the clay for PVC in the sewer line, we're going to get less storm water going into our sewer system. And that's could be bad because then we're diluting our waste less, but then it's kind of good because we're not maxing out we're nowhere near max capacity at our wastewater.
Yeah, right.
But it's certainly going to be a lot less water going to the sewer plant. I don't know how that's going to affect how well that treatment plant is cleaning out nitrogen and things like that. So, okay, so there's all this grant money. I feel like maybe like after we get through this, we could talk about like lead and copper grant money. But like we have all these lead service lines. We have all these pigtails or goosenecks, and these dots right here, the pink dots are where the lead service lines are, according to a list that I just got from the town administration that they worked on a few years ago to be compliant for the lead and copper rule. They had to identify all the sites where these lead and copper or these lead service lines were, as well as houses that were built from 83 to 87. So the dots you're seeing, the red are houses built from 83 to 87 that might have lead pipe in their houses. The pink are goosenecks. So real quick, this is what a gooseneck or a pigtail is. Here's the water main, and then there's these flexible little pipes because they're convenient.
Because they're really flexy.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's easy to connect.
They connect to the water lines. What I wanted to do with this data is figure out, okay, well, let's look at I think it was Onarga. Onarga had the most amount of lead service lines on a single pipeline, but yet that pipe was replaced in the 90s with PVC. So it's like, damn, too bad I wasn't cast iron, because then that would be a slam dunk, right? We just get rid of all that, boom. So I don't really know how we start chipping away at that, because some of the lines are new and don't need to be replaced. Just food for thought. All right, so that was distribution. I wanted to start with distribution because I have not heard very much from anybody except for the other public works guys going like, damn, like the sewer line is garbage. So I really wanted to bring that up and emphasize that. Like I want to hear more conversation about sewer distribution, because like we could spend all of our money over here, and then all of a sudden our lines keep breaking, our houses keep backing up with crap. You know, we need to come up with a game plan to address that. Pardon my language.
Well, that's what you're dealing with.
Well, yeah. All right, and now the water moratorium. So I wish Paige was here, because she was like, well, what did JDS say we needed to do to lift the water moratorium? This was their list. It was fix the 2 million gallon tank, get the clock plant online, address the PRVs, which are pressure reducing valves, do a water loss analysis, collect more data, and then improve the springs.
Are those in order?
More or less, but yeah, like in JDS's report, they said that even with the standby taps, we have enough water to satisfy our need. But there's vulnerabilities in our system, and there's uncertainty with the source water data, so they wanted to do a more protracted analysis. So And they did look at storage, like in terms of acre feet, you know, like where, like a reservoir that we could revamp or build another one, and those are like multi-million-dollar projects. You know, they're just like, that's not really feasible. So we'll get into the spring improvements. They were just talking about like doing infiltration galleries, so we can get more water into our pipes at the springs. Would be a better use of money. Okay, so the 2 million gallon tank rehab, you're all familiar with it?
Yeah.
Everybody's nodding. Yes, we all know. And two things that I wanted to call out is like, it's, according to SGM, they give it if we were to replace that today, $7.3 million. It's got 37 years worth of life on it. So I just wanted to call that out.
That's way different than something else I read. Somebody else's report said much less than that. So, yeah, if that's the fact, then there's no...
So I haven't seen this revised report, but I'm going off of SGM. The town paid, I don't know, what, $100,000 to have them like assessors. It's like, I'm data driven, and I defer to the experts. So I just want to say that. All right, and then okay. Now the thing about the clock plant is it will absolutely fail a sanitary survey. There's rodent poop in there. There's bugs in there. If you read the EPA like construction standards, they say it's got to be buttoned up really tight for it to pass the sanitary survey. Other than that tank, which is it's not the swimming pool, if you will. It's a below ground concrete tank that's been relined. That holds water just fine. That's fine. It's the shell above it that it has breaches. Otherwise, like, I don't really see anything wrong with that plant. It's minor repair things. The PLC, which is the program logic controller, it's got a little bit of a communication error, but it's like nothing severe that would prevent us from running that. Actually, the thing that's preventing us from running it right now is literally a heating element that we need to heat water to do the clean in place process that you have to do after the plant's been offline for a period of time. So we're literally just waiting on this one stupid heating element that cost $1,000.
So they replaced the roof on that somewhere around 2014, 13, somewhere in there. But is it okay, or was it a crap job?
The roof's holding. It keeps. I don't know where the breaches are. I don't have time really to like go and look at that. So I've actually JDS. They gave me 3 contractors to call who are helping another system survey a similar tank, and then just either do it or come up with a solution.
Are you seeing any leaks in the roof?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just seeing dead bugs and mouse poop. Now,
we could flush that down to the users.
Yeah, right. So just so you guys know, that none of the water in there is going to distribution right now. It's totally severed from distribution.
So where did you say there were breaches or leaks in the upper part?
I wish I had a picture. So
You said the concrete is fine, the lining's fine.
Yeah, and then so above ground. It's just like steel wall, not steel, but like corrugated metal walls and roof. So it's like a shed that's over the top of it.
And that's falling apart?
It's not falling apart. It's just not sealed.
Not sealed.
Right. So it's like you said, a swimming pool with a shed over it rather than a building.
Yeah.
It really needs to have a sealed building over
Okay,
it.
because the tank is open on top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave?
I get it.
Doesn't this have to come online in order to reline the 2 million?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can't reline the 2 million or do anything with it unless this works.
Yeah.
That's right. So it seems like this is step 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you're with. Now we're getting on the same page, and it gets worse. No, actually, not yet.
Come on.
Okay, so here's that altitude valve project. I cannot understand the logic to install it because August, low flow, high demand, right? The assumption is that Lamborn will have overflow that can go down to the clock plant. and fill it. There's not overflow at Lamborn right now. In fact, Clock has 190 gallons a minute that are not being treated and going anywhere. There's already 190 gallons going to that plant right now that's not being treated and put into that tank. So I don't understand, like, in the future for redundancy, for like, oh, we gotta fix the 2 million gallon tanks, let's put, I just don't understand this project right now. It just like.
Yeah, but if it's that tank is full and it's maintained full,
Yeah.
and it's used by the town, which my understanding was that tank was for the town users, and the 2 million gallon tank was for the out-of-town users and to supplement the Clock tank, then it would stay full even if we have low flow later on.
So yeah, I sort of call out, so high demand, we use about 430,000 gallons per day. 1 million gallons gives us like 2.3 days worth of additional storage, right? So it's like, I just don't know what benefit it's going to give us. And nobody can give me like a logical answer that goes, oh, that makes sense, right?
Wait, you don't understand the benefit of bringing the Clock tank online?
No, I don't understand. Okay,
It's
so
on the altitude valve.
this altitude valve, so the idea with this altitude valve is to take water that's been treated at Lamborn and from a distribution pipe connected to the 1 million gallon storage tank, so that Lamborn could put water into the lower treatment plant.
But it's the lower one is a treatment plant as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that
I mean,
doesn't make
that's a good
sense.
idea.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I mean, that transfer pipe wouldn't be necessary, so.
Bless you.
We had one at one time, a 2-inch. I still haven't gone up to look for it.
I'm not sure, what is it you don't understand about the altitude?
Why we need to bank water at Clock from Lamborn?
Yeah, there's already enough coming through Clock.
Why don't we just use that treatment plant to put
Well,
water in the Clock?
That was the original design.
I mean,
So,
you don't have to turn that altitude valve on. I mean, it becomes, at some point, it may become useful if you're doing other things upstream, right?
So I guess why I'm calling it out now is because we have to prioritize our budget, and I don't see it as a high priority right now.
But a real priority is getting that transfer line working from, and you're gonna have to have some kind of a valve in there somewhere.
So, okay, let me go to the next slide, because
All right.
maybe this is, so it would make sense to me if water could come out of that tank and go into distribution. It would make sense to me because of this 12-inch asbestos cement pipe that goes from the Clock plant to downtown. So that red line right there it's an old asbestos cement pipe, and it goes through people's properties, and they don't have plat easements either. It's just, it was like, I don't even know when it was put in. It's been like, it's had some head static pressure and it's breaking. It's not necessarily like, it's not much is happening.
So is that the only supply line from Clock to town?
Yeah. And there's no laterals off of it. So it makes it up to that Crest Haven.
$500,000, right?
Yeah, exactly. Up to Crest Haven, and then it drops into town. And
What's the length there?
I actually let's see if I can click on it. I don't have that link for you.
What's at Crest Haven? A 500,000 gallon tank?
There used to be a 500,000.
Oh, there's
We had
not
to
now.
decommission it. It was a mess.
Okay.
It was on the edge of the basin.
So
What's the spill rate on upper plant? Are you spilling?
not right now.
Is it, so it fills up at night and comes down during the day? Are you noticing that it's dropping each day? Or is it holding its level?
It's holding its level. Like, yeah, it doesn't quite get to the spill level in the middle of the night, and then it drops down to, I don't know, 13.13 feet, or 30.13 feet. Max is 30.32 feet. I don't know if that breaks down to inches right now.
So day by day, though, you're not noticing that.
We're not dropping.
In the morning, it's not a little bit lower than it was the previous day.
Correct.
That happened in 2003, and it got really spooky because we just kept dropping. And that's why like another 2 million gallon tank, it's not like you get X number of days out of 2 million gallons.
Right.
It provides a buffer
Right.
to build back up during the night and then come out during the day. So it does extend your time more than a couple
Right.
of days.
So a question.
Yeah.
So, bringing the clock tower plant online is a whole lot more than just bringing the clock tower plant online. You're gonna have to deal with the supply line from Lamborn at some cost. And you're also gonna have to deal with the concrete line, that's a discharge line from the clock, right? So, I mean, the question becomes is, we get clock all fired up and things are working, we get the transfer, and then we start getting massive leaks in the concrete line going to town.
Well, you're saying the transfer. Are you talking
I'm
about the
talking about
altitude?
Lamborn to where the altitude valve would be, essentially. I mean, there's.
Well, so that's installed. Let me point that one out to you. So here's Lamborn.
Well, that line goes right by the clock tower, but it doesn't hook up to it.
Correct. Well, there's a 2-inch pipe.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so is that the two?
Yeah, it's a two, what is that, a 10 inch?
Sorry, this is 8 all the way down, and then somewhere right over here, it goes from 8 to 2 into.
That might be the two I'm talking.
Is
Yeah,
that,
and I found it.
Yeah.
I found it, but it's
You
capped.
found it. It's capped. I knew it was. It wasn't, and you couldn't see any inlet into the 1 million gallon tank.
Right. Well, it goes into the plant, and I can turn it on and hook a hose up to it. But then from the treatment plant to the 1 million gallon tank, it's been capped.
So we do have a transfer
Since when?
line.
Probably when they relined it, to be honest, because they were like, oh, there's a hole.
Is that transfer line PVC or ductile? Do you know what it
It's PVC.
is? It
Yeah,
8
it's-
inch?
Yeah, it's 8-inch.
So that's good news, actually. And where was the proposed side of the altitude valve, on the inlet to the tank there, where that little 2 inches now?
Yeah, so you'll see. So here's that 8-inch distribution line right here, and then it cuts over. So just for reference, then it cuts over. The German Creek is right here, so we need to do like this,
You got to bore under German Creek.
or go over. But yeah. So just for reference, here's the 1 million gallon tank. Here's that line, and then here's the distribution. So if we go back to, well, I guess it'd be like right here, right? Or I guess I can zoom in, huh? Or
It's right there where the blue line comes in.
Yeah, so-
Right there.
Where was that Lamborn, the only place that the clock tank gets water from?
no. Clock right here. This is a treatment plant right here.
It's a
And-
treatment plant, but where does the water come from?
Okay, great.
They're
We're
different
getting to spring improvements.
Yeah, really. They're different sets of springs for
Okay,
the upper
that's what I was,
and lower.
that's what I was thinking, okay.
And right now, like a whole bunch of our springs are just totally offline. Like Jeremiah's talking about 160 gallons a minute that we're just not using during a
That we're
critical period of
wasting.
time.
Right, like right now, it's literally here. I'll show you just real quick. So like, look up there real quick. So like, over here, the water is coming from over here and flowing all the way down to here, and then right there, that building is a treatment plant.
Right.
So there's half of our spring system goes here,
And it's offline.
And it's offline, and so where's the water going?
just into German Creek right here. So
Just spills.
so whoever can pull off a German Creek for their lawn right now is stoked.
Is
Did you
it
have
basically going into ditch water? Is that, yeah?
Did you have a question?
Yeah, so are you moving on from the 1 million, or can you just recap real quick? What are all those things that have to be done to the 1 million for it to be?
Yeah, I'm like, well, so Philip, if that altitude valve could take water out of that storage tank and put it into distribution, I'd be all for it. But it sounds like it can only use the distribution line to fill the 1 million gallon tank and not leave. So that's like, maybe instead we just figure out how to do away with that 12-inch asbestos pipe and just put it into the distribution system right there.
So, yeah, that might be good. You
And,
think that
I'll-
asbestos pipe is at its limit? We need to get that critter out of there.
It's at the end of its lifespan, but it's not like a health hazard. If we keep it wet, it's supposed to be fine.
Yeah, no, asbestos when it's sealed is okay.
Where's that red?
It's breathing the asbestos that matters, not.
Right, so
you
when it
can drink
dries
all you
out.
want.
That red line is that 12-inch asbestos line.
Where does it terminate down there in the old days?
Right over.
That's a half. See
So
the
that was
white
the old
That's
system.
the old, yeah.
The only thing accurate about this red line is where it terminates.
Yeah, where it started.
Where it started and where it ended. But recently.
It seemed abnormally straight there, Jeremiah.
I know, right? One of these.
Well, it would seem not to be a big engineering feat to be able to have finished water run into the clock tower and then on the output tap it back into the distribution system.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's really nice to have a buffer in your system.
Is the- You're right, it would be really nice. So on the tapping it in the distribution system, is those lines, can they take the capacity coming from that plant?
It would be throttled by what would be allowed into the pipe. So that's a good question. It would be a pressure thing.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't have enough head pressure coming out of that tank to compete with the head pressure of what's already coming down the line.
Right.
So that's a really good point. I'll have to get back to you on that one. So that's a very interesting point. I do want to point out this little box, it's this box right here. That's the entry point, Philip. We actually have like a 3/4 inch hex line that goes from here back to here to give us our chlorine residual number. It's crazy. Anyway.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and it's got a pump constantly running. But so this thing right here, like how do we make clock not disgusting? That's my big question mark.
As far as
Once upon a time, it wasn't disgusting.
I mean, are you talking about just cleanup, or what are you talking about?
Well,
See, it's new house.
cleanup is the easy thing. Cleanup is the easy thing. It's like enclosing that tank so we don't have a sanitary breach, and
Put a
then
big Tupperware top on it. I mean, not fix the shed roof, but somehow seal the top.
I think if we're gonna go for money for a new tank, it's for there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Personally.
Well, not a new tank, but a new housing for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more partial. Like, if we want to splurge and spend money on a new tank, put it there.
Yeah, what about
But-
real estate? I thought that came up before. We had plenty of real estate upstairs on
I think that was a problem. It was a problem for the second tank.
Well, yeah,
we got
okay.
a tank, we got a room upstairs.
Yeah, do you have kind of like a pros and cons of each, I don't know, project? Like if you were choosing what to do first, you're like,
So like I started with collection and distribution for a reason. Like I want to get all that nasty stuff out of our water lines and stop breaks.
Yeah.
Right. And also something that we just encountered with this recent break is there aren't nearly enough air vacs on our system to purge the air out of the line. So for days people were like, "Oh, my tap is still low pressure," right? And we need everybody to open their tap to purge the air. It's like there are a handful of air vents on our line, but they're not mapped. So but what I wanted to show you about the 2 million, sorry to jump around everybody, but what I wanted to show you about the real estate of the 2 million gallon tank is we have this square here, right? You can see it, that's the county plat box. And it looks like there's space, but the truth is this is the only area that's graded flat. So
the other one's going downhill.
yeah, so there's a steep slope here, there's a steep slope here, and I wish I had 1 foot contour lines. I would, never mind. I would hire an airplane to fly a glider over the town and survey it all, but maybe down the road.
talk to Jeff Rupert. I think he's got a drone that'll do that.
With LiDAR?
I don't know if it's LiDAR, but he did say once that he had something that anyway.
You're Odyssey?
Odyssey, yeah.
Okay, cool, I will. Thanks. Okay, moving on. Okay, the PRVs. Anybody want to know anything about the PRVs? Yeah. Was that a yes, Dave?
I know a small amount of it from reading the JDS side. ASTM?
Okay,
Just
so,
looking at those reports on that.
okay, so I'll just read the bold parts. So we have 841 feet of drop from the Lamborn plant to Town Hall. Okay, I didn't account for friction loss, but it could be about 364 psi's of pressure built up in the line, and optimal pressure is around 60 to 80 psi's. So they just, okay, this is redacted information, but briefly I'll just show you. So Lamborn's here, we have a PRV right about here to slow it down there, and then we have another PRV here to slow it down even further. And then we have another PRV here to slow it down further, and then one more here, and then it goes into town. So we have, what was that? That was 4 just to go on the west loop to town. On the east loop, we have 1 that's broken, and so that's a priority project. It's right around here. Right, yeah, right here, somewhere over here. And then the next one is down this really steep road right here that's Dry Gulch, I think it is.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle, so that's 1 of 2. And then down here in 4100 Road, there's 2 back to back. And that was like,
What is that?
well, Travis had that PRV bolt fail on him completely, and then it just blew out a ton of people's boilers, water boilers. So he fixed that one and installed another one and said, that'll never happen again because now I have a redundancy. JDS said, let's just take one of them out. I don't see the point in taking it out. That's just a...
So you just have one of them locked open?
Well, the first one's stopping the bulk of it,
Right.
and then the second one is...
I think there's a bypass in there. Anyway.
There's a handful of bypass. Okay, so then that one had 4 basically, 3 of 4 are operating, and then one more on 3rd Street because our water main goes up around Apple Valley and then drops back down to 3rd Street, so it needs to be slowing down again. So they just control the pressure. One thing that I did call out was so the PRVs, they need rubber gasket kits and pilot systems about every 10 years. Sometimes they need to be completely replaced, like we have 3rd Street needs to be completely replaced, and above Dry Gulch on Lone Cabin, that one's totally corroded and is completely open right now. It's doing nothing. That one needs to be completely replaced too. 3rd Street needs a low flow bypass. Now the reason you put a low flow bypass is if you have a big valve that's supposed to handle like 500 gallons a minute, but only 100 is going through it, it'll start to eat away at the rubber, and so you have to replace it more frequently. Or you just put a bypass that can handle the low flow. So there's Crest Haven, which is right above town, that needs a bypass, and 3rd Street needs a bypass. Just to give these more life. And also give us a redundancy. If we need to turn one off, fix it, we can keep running water. Okay, so there's this project, and JDS called this out. This was like a conversation James and I had about Minnesota Creek. So something about Minnesota Creek, which is really interesting, is, I don't have this one color-coded. This line right here is a 4-inch line, and it goes all the way down to whatever that consecutive water system is. Now, they have 40 standby taps over there. They'll never be able to develop that and have sufficient water pressure out there with a 4-inch line. I know, big deal, because it's Art Cole. I get it.
Is it our coal up there? I don't think
It
so.
is, it
Oh,
is,
all the way up
yeah.
there? Okay.
Are
Yeah.
some of those taps in Hidden Valley? You're talking about?
The 40? Not from what I
Or are you thinking
understand.
it's just up Minnesota Creek?
From what-
What used to be the Whistling Acres?
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
When I worked with the Whistling Acres stuff, we had a contract that could go way back, but it was 9 or 10 taps is all we gave. So there are a number of taps in Hidden Valley that are landlocked. By that I mean when they when they platted it out, they had more taps than they had lots. And so they had maybe 20-something taps left over. They came to the town wanting to sell them to us, and I was on water sewer at the time. I said, you can have them. You can never do anything with them. They're yours. Just pay the standby fee.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering whether that's some of those taps that will never be developed, or whether they're all up with, like I said.
Could they force a bigger line to make them? Maybe supply them. If we have a standby tap, does the town have any obligation to provide water to those standbys? And that would mean.
Well, they'll never be connected to anything because each of the lots already has a tap, so they have more taps than they have
Okay.
lots.
Makes sense.
Unless,
They're assigned to that area. They can't be transferred.
Right. So that number 40 reduces the number of standby taps?
I think so. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Well, I thought actually I thought I got the number for it was either you or Corinne, because like they had what do they have 300 standby taps, but they can't put them anywhere. It's like 40 over here, 100 over here.
The
30
arch
over here.
taps, the contract states that they have to put the taps up on Limeboard Mesa. You know where you come around that corner, there's a PRV valve there? Right across the street, there's maybe a couple hundred acres or something.
Yeah.
That's used for cattle.
Yeah.
That's Arch owns that land, and that's where
That's-
the taps have to be assigned
this big old
first.
thing.
Okay.
How many there?
So, yeah, right there, that place that's all vacant.
Well, they're gonna put a golf course in there for us.
Yeah, I never thought about it at one time.
I know,
In
swimming
order
pool.
for them to put that many taps in there, like 200 taps have to be assigned to that land and can't be transferred out. That ground doesn't perk, and if we don't provide them sewer, they can never develop that out. So there'll be a density much less than 200 taps. Now, Arch also owns a piece on Minnesota Creek, not too far from where Hannah is.
On Minnesota Creek.
That's down, and that's their preferential place to build.
power lines go across.
That's their preferential place to build because being on the creek, of course, is more aesthetically pleasing. And
Yeah,
so
too.
Arch wanted to build there first, but the contract we have with the Donald May contract.
Yeah, it's probably, right.
Yeah, somewhere back in there.
Oh, way back here.
No, it's
No,
not
yeah.
that far. It's to the
It's
left.
just a little further than Dry Gulch.
Yeah, it's not. It's just a little bit
not
east of where the Dry Gulch Road comes
Is
down.
at the edge of your left side.
Where the horizontal is at the edge of the left
It's
side.
now irrigated land,
Somewhere-
like that piece of
Yeah.
irrigated
Am I
land.
close enough?
Yeah.
So there's the rest of the taps, whatever it is, 100 or so. I think it's less actually because Hidden Valley taken some. But they wanted to develop that, but because of the contract, they have to develop the upper one first before they're allowed to develop it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's all very interesting to me. I don't know what to make of it. All I wanted to say about the 4-inch line.
No way it's going to feed them.
No way it's gonna feed them, right? But the other thing is, so the PRV that's right here creates a pressure zone for Hidden Valley and Minnesota Creek. Minnesota Creek has 200 psi's, whereas the top of Hidden Valley is like 40. So if we try to lower the pressure for Minnesota Creek,
Yeah.
Hidden Valley gets starved.
Because that line goes through that little saddle on top of Hidden Mesa above.
Yeah,
Hidden Valley.
Elephant Hill or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right here is about where that hill is. So, just why I'm bringing this up is because we need to figure out
PRV.
what to do about pressure. Maybe it's install a PRV over here. But for now, it's like it's more like Art Cole's problem. You know, just to put it simple. But it is something that I talked with James at JDS about. Of like, well, this line could be a source of leakage though because of the PSI so high, you know, potentially. So it's something to consider. We might need to put another PRV on that just to bring down the pressure, just so we're not leaking a bunch of water that we can't detect.
So is that line actually feeding anything that's in use?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Whispering Acres. There's a whole bunch of houses.
It's been like 10, they've had 10 lots or so they sold in there. They're not all fully developed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
I
there's
guess,
houses all along.
yeah, it goes way back there.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I guess they have like a 2-inch after our 4-inch.
At
which
some
is-
point, we turned it over to their water company. It's their problem.
Right.
I don't know where the split point is in that. So, one other thing on PRVs.
Okay.
What about pressure dropping down from the springs to the plants?
So at least German Creek and Lake Fork, there's open boxes, so
Okay.
it gives us atmospheric pressure at those boxes. Currently, Clock is an interesting one. We have to let the water constantly flow through there, and I am concerned that once we actually, so the plant can only handle like 660 gallons a minute, so it should be able to take it all. Actually, I don't know.
It historically did, and there's dual skids in there too.
Yeah. The only time I get concerned about the fall from the raw water to clock is if it's ever like closed off and restricted. Then we're building up 600 psi's in those lines.
So as long as we're pulling the water out.
As long as they're and we always keep the spring valves open, and they just flow through into German Creek right now. But I think the solution, because I did consider this, the solution isn't PRVs, it's open boxes.
Yeah, they're basically brakes. They break the pressure.
Yeah,
and they work.
And I've been looking at the maps like, well, where do we have town land? Where can we put one? Where could we let the spillover go to something beneficial? And I haven't figured it out. It's like, so okay, that's PRVs.
Can I ask an issue? There was an issue up on the Pan American that the fire hydrants didn't have enough pressure, and
Oh yeah,
is
Pan America, that's up in Apple Valley. Yeah, I think their biggest issue is they have a 2-inch line up there. That was their biggest issue, and we sat with the fire chief to talk about it, and they have hose long enough to get down to the bottom of the hill to pull water all the way up where there are hydrants with more pressure, where it's like a 6-inch line instead of a 2-inch. So it's like, it's not ideal, but like the easy fix is that if there's ever a fire up there, the fire chief knows exactly which hydrant to use.
just thinking of consideration of development, potentially after all this is done, maybe, 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
To really consider those developments and if they have proper pressurization for their fire hydrants and whatnot.
Yeah.
If these existing communities don't, areas, anyway.
Yeah.
When we bought 20 years ago, Pan American, there was not adequate pressure, and we were able to get the price of the house changed because the pressure was so low.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was sometimes below 30 psi. So that was one thing. Second thing, this is hearsay. The person looked at the mine and said, the reason they got all those taps was for fire suppression, not for development. It was required by the Forest Service that they get all those taps so that if there's a fire in the mine, they can use that water and pull it from Paonia to put out fires.
Well, let's hold them to that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's one thing I heard. It was word of mouth from someone that worked in the mines, and I wondered, that makes sense that back when the mine was opened up, the Forest Service required them to have some kind of method to put a fire out in the mine. 400 taps would be the answer for that.
That sounds pretty weird to me.
It does to me too. I thought they had rights to the springs that were given to Paonia.
Would that be 400 garden hoses up there?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's to augment. It's like because they're pulling out of the river.
They're going to augment.
Yeah, it's mitigation things.
I mean, if that in fact is true, I've worked with the Forest Service a lot on it. There's a document. It'd be interesting to go research that because the mine had to have the Forest Service approval either with the EIA or
Their
something.
permits would be public.
It would be in the permit. Yeah, it'd be interesting to go look that up because that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
Just to keep us on
Yes.
track, so we're talking about how to lift the moratorium, and so water loss analysis, just because I didn't want you guys to go like, why are we talking about that now? So water loss analysis was something JDS wanted us to do. They did an initial one. Theirs was very basic. They took treated water, subtracted billed water, and came up with our loss. I registered us with the Colorado Water Loss Initiative, and I'm going to drag Corey and Corinne into a meeting with those guys at the end of September where we're going to do basically that first step again with 2021 data, but then we're going to they have some other variables because the software, if you will, it's basically a glorified spreadsheet, has been updated, and they have new correction factors, like how reliable is the data, when were the meters tested or whatever, and what's interesting about this is there's 3 types of leaks. There's leaks that surface, leaks that don't, and then just fittings that release pressure, or I'm sorry, release little pinpricks of water. The reason I bring that up is because we have pressure zones that range from like 60 to 200 psi, and there's a very good chance that we're losing a lot of water just because our pressure's too high in our lines. And it's like, it's nothing you can go and listen for. You just have to like address the systemic problem. And that might look like investing in more PRV systems to break up our pressure zones. And it's just, again, like food for thought, because maybe we need to carve out another, 200,000 for PRV volts. And you're thinking, well, that's a lot of money. But then when you go and you calculate water loss costs, it's like, oh shit, it paid for itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's pretty extreme. Especially our system, it was like, what was the number? It was like 35 million gallons or 55 million gallons that we're allegedly losing in a year. It's like,
How
that's,
much?
Wow.
No, that's, yeah, it is.
35, like 30.
35 million?
Yeah.
35 to 55
Yeah.
million.
Sorry?
I say, we've looked at that. If you look at the municipalities in Denver and other places, they call it non-revenue water, basically water you're losing. So it's not, the city of Denver, for example, has about an 18% non-revenue water loss. So most utilities, large utilities are running, if you can run at 10 or 12%,
Yeah, I called them back when we were
You're
doing
at the top.
leak analysis, and they said 10%.
10% is a good target.
Well,
20%.
what percent is that of ours?
We're at 39%.
39?
I'll get us down to 10%. I just have to change the water meters. It's easy.
So how many million gallons are we using as a town per year?
I want to get that
Oh.
that number for you right here. I think it's towards the bottom. By the way, I'm pulling everything out of a handful of it is like talking to like people who've been here forever, but mostly I'm pulling it out of JDS's report and SGM's report, and then seeing it on the ground. Like the water spilling on the ground everywhere.
And when you talk about water loss and leaks, there's still a huge amount coming from the Springfield plant. That's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
quantified at all until we put meters on the springs.
Well, this 39% is not including that loss.
That's
Correct.
only from the plant down into town.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely over half our water's been pissed away.
Man, sorry I can't find this really readily, but it's like I think it was like 157 million gallons we're using every year on average, and what here? Somebody quick, 39% of 157 million. Give me the number. Yes, I'm pulling this out of my hat right now, but it's close. 150 million.
Yeah, well.
Times 0.39. Yeah, like 61 million gallons is 39% loss.
Huh.
And so there's with the Colorado Water Loss Initiative, they're gonna help us quantify how much revenue we're losing, how much we're spending on treating water that we're not billing for, and then the lost revenue too. So yeah, it's a big business.
The hard reality is you just showed us aging infrastructure, pressure zone problems, and it's going to be very difficult to get that number down below 20% at best, unless you rehabilitate all your infrastructure.
Yeah.
So
Piece by piece.
You can get kind of over-focused, I think, on non-revenue water. Right now, we have enough spillage to do that. I think you just have to be careful in your priorities, because infrastructure may be more important right now than messing with non-revenue numbers. And non-revenue numbers, by the way, there's a lot of what we call Kentucky windage in those numbers. They could be off as much as 3 standard deviations, which would be 15%.
Yeah.
So it's an important number to look at, but it looks to me like other things we need to drive maybe a little harder. I like data just like you do, but our meters, most water meters to the home are plus or minus 3 or 5% accurate. A lot of our meters are 10 or 15 years old, and it's a little spinning plastic cage in there, and it's amazing how it can work. So there's probably a 4 or 5, maybe even 8% misread on meters. And particularly, the bigger the meter, the more they can be off unless you have compound meters. So, and I think the numbers coming out of the plant are pretty good. Those are meg meters, if they're right.
Yeah. I actually just last month realized I had time to sit down and be in the plant that our filter, like what the skids were filtering, was 15 gallons a minute less than what our filtered meter was at, and so I fixed that, and you know that was like, that's only like 435,000 gallons a month,
Sure.
only, right? A day's worth of water, but yeah, so I'm almost certain that the Colorado Water Loss Initiative will push us towards calibrating and verifying meters before doing any sort of leak detection or pressure regulating. I can almost guarantee it, because like we don't have any records of ever verifying and calibrating meters ever. So they're going to say that's your fudge factor right there, and then they're going to have us start there. I guarantee it. They supposedly have equipment now where you don't have to take the meter out and put it on the bench to test it. And I'm looking forward to learning about that, because like you're saying, yeah, like I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we'll probably take 1 to 10% of the customer meters and test those and see how accurate they are. And then at least with the consecutive water systems, those will be easy to calibrate, and at least we can like go, oh look, we just verified 30 homes, you know, because we got the master meter. I talked to Hammond Pipeline today because we needed to flush some air out, and they were saying, the guy Gary over there who does the reads was saying that their master meter and their accumulative individual user meter reads are pretty accurate. And I'm just going off of what he's saying, but I think that's something. You know, at least with the consecutive water systems, that's one way we can validate the accuracy of the master meters, is if everybody else, if it all adds up.
It adds up, that's cool.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're doing in a lot of my companies is we just have an annual replacement. We replace about 5 to 10% of our meters every year as part of our budget.
Wow.
So, and what we do is pick the oldest ones, and we're moving to more, you know, meters are undergoing an electronic revolution right now in terms of measuring and metering and leak control. So the smart meter at the home, and like in Denver and other places, will actually tell an operator like you, there's a leak at this location, and you can go find it. Right now, a leak just goes on forever until you
Yeah.
So meter replacement annually and a SCADA meter system should probably be part of every utility budget.
That may be beyond us at the moment.
Sure.
We're dark, I mean.
I know. We have 4. At least we have 4 of those hydrants that tell us about pressure drops. That's a start, but there's definitely a lot of things we could put on our distribution system to.
But I think, you know, first things first: pressure control, line control, leak control.
Yeah, and
Be nice.
This one tracked analysis of our data. That's all this one is saying. Okay, now the springs, big thing here. Okay, so this is more or less all of our springs. There's a few down here out of this. There they are, right there. So we have a ton of springs. We do need to revisit the water rights, obviously, but so JDS didn't do our water rights analysis. It was another company, and they did it like in '94. And I'm dying to find their report. It's probably upstairs in a box somewhere.
It's probably not. We had a town manager that
Stole everything.
that basically shredded almost half of the documents that we had over the objections of staff, and staff couldn't even stop her. So we don't know what got shredded, but
Maybe that
there's
comes-
stuff in the water courts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then whoever the firm was that did the analysis, if they're still in business, hopefully they still got it.
I have a bunch of reports I think I got from Corinne, because this thing came up about a year ago. And I'll bring them by for you. And I think Aaron Clay did a bunch of them, and there was another, I have quite a few of the water rights up on the Bell Creek side. And there was a lot of work done when Stuart Mesa split the springs at Mays and Gilwick up there. So, I mean, the stuff's around, and it is in the water court. But a lot of those springs up there are shared with Rovers, for example, there's a lot of very interesting.
Yeah, Bone Mesa we split with.
Splitter boxes up there.
Lake Fork we split.
This is a really cool diagram because I mean this is basically our water rights in a diagram.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so like you were saying, Bone Mesa, we share Pole Patch and Maize with Bone Mesa. Apparently, Bone Mesa gets 100% of it from November 1st to April 1st, and then Paonia gets 75% of it from April 1st to November 1st. So that's interesting, and it's quite a bit of water. But so what you're seeing here is back in 2000. This was proposed work on the spring system. M's are for meters, P's are for pipe, and just from going up to the springs, I'm pretty sure only like 1/10 of this ever got implemented. For instance, I know Stevens Springs, which is something that I really want to like zero in on. But it's like, according to this diagram, we don't actually know what our decree is for Stevens Springs, but Luke, oh my God, I always butcher his last name, the water commissioner, Reschke.
Yeah.
He said that we had two spring decrees up there. We developed one of them, and the other one wasn't developed. I'm really emphasizing on this one because the spring box that I saw up there was clogged, but that spring basin is huge, and there's probably still standing water up there. It's like it's an incredibly productive spring that is totally underutilized. So we won't get into the details here because I kind of feel like we gotta.
The JDS report had recommended that we look at our water rights.
Oh yeah.
And that's what got my attention right away. That was one of the first things I saw when I read through the report about that. And we have not when we hired Jeff Conklin, he had some water expertise, but we never moved as a council on saying we actually want to hire the water attorney to look at these rights and make sure they're intact.
But isn't that already on file? I mean, all of
Well,
our
just to
water
make
rights-
sure, there was some question about it, see? And so I think it'd be nice to button it up before
Yeah.
someone from California or Las Vegas decides to see a loophole and pull it
Yeah,
out of it.
I totally agree. Luke, he was really trying to hammer in that like some of our decrees are like ancient, and then some of them are new. And let's be really careful when we go to the water court with like a new filing or something, that like we don't bring in something that's ancient into a new filing, because then we lose our priority.
Yeah.
Things like that, like what if the town decides that they really want to work on the rights, I will compile everything. We don't hire a lawyer to do all that legwork, right? And then have them interpret it. Like I can kind of feel like, let's be careful with the lawyers, because they'll build a town a ton of money to spin wheels when really we should have at least an idea of what we're looking at, so that when we consult a lawyer, we're not surprised, you know?
Well,
They
we're
just
not paying them to do the research that we already
Right.
have in our files.
Okay.
Or that is already evident in water courts, because there's water court cases where that record is on file, and there's previous law firms that have worked on our stuff, that their files should have that. So if we do that legwork, then yeah, we're
Right.
saving a lot of legal fees. But if we don't, and we just tell them to go after it, then
Right.
they're doing all that work
Right.
for $300 an hour,
Right.
$500 an hour, whatever they're charging.
right. Yeah.
I've done a fair amount of research. It's fairly easy to research water rights. You just go to the DNR waterbase, type in Stevens Springs,
Yeah.
and if there's any filings on Stevens Springs, they'll pop up, and you just trace it down.
Right.
I mean, it's not that hard to do, but
Right. Okay.
and
Fair enough.
Once you get the decrees, then it gets real interesting, because
But that wasn't evident. That's what JDS hired looked at. They said that those kind of decrees and that evidence was not available to them. That's what scared me.
Okay. Yeah, I've been on the Water Resource Department website, and I've navigated like spring, like well permits and things like that. So maybe, shoot, in my free time, I'll go ahead and pull it up.
Or free time, right?
And I think, you didn't hear this from me, I think Luke Reschke's advice is that don't get too picky and don't spend a lot of time with the District 4 engineer. I mean, try and put this piece together, and it may be in our advantage to just go develop Stevens Spring if we can use it for the.
Yeah, if we got it, if we own it, let's just develop.
My experience with the water world is just don't ask too many damn questions.
Just go. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Could you open up Pandora's box?
Do it like the homesteaders did. Nope, I was here first. See, my stick was here first. So I cherry picked a little bit here, but I mean, JDS did look at additional storage. They never said break down the 2 million gallon tank, and their suggestion, they said reline that, and then if we really wanted more storage, build another tank up at Lamborn. So it was like repair and build another one.
Yeah.
So just so I didn't call that out, but I can show you that in their report. And then they looked at what it would take to get us some acre feet of storage, which is like getting a reservoir fixed. And
I mean, the original water study that I saw, the Green Books, to pair in about 1994 or so, the engineer we hired, she came to the conclusion we had no good sites for a reservoir.
yeah, and that's
And they've been over and over this multiple times. And every water study we've done that's looked at reservoir sites has come to the conclusion it just doesn't fly. And one of the problems that was like with Lone Cabin was whenever you share water with the agriculture user in the same reservoir, the agriculture user wants that reservoir empty at the end of the agricultural season, and that's right where we need it. Right, so because our low part, right, August, September, and so you really can't share one. We do share one. We share rotors right now, and we looked at Todd Reservoir. You've seen what Todd looks like.
wait, are we sharing rovers?
Yeah, I think we have some sort of share deal. We own a certain percentage of acre of their acre feet,
Right. Okay.
that we can use, and we tapped that I think in 2018 or something.
The 19, the low water
Yeah.
debacle. Yeah, and then there was talks of increasing our share there or something like that. Like,
Well, we're
Right.
raising the level of the dam and doing a lot of rehabilitation on the tank.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, because I'm not sure about this, but we were never discussing tearing out the 2 million gallon tank to replace it, right?
That came up.
Oh, we did, 'cause that's like the most brain dead thing I've heard in a
Well,
while.
you know,
Fill me in on
The
it.
thing that was really weird about the other night is it was a lot of hair on fire, like we gotta apply for this right, and I get so upset at council meetings when people put pressure on me to make a decision
Instant
real
decisions
fast.
with no
And
data.
I hate that. And we didn't have JDS people in front of us, we didn't have engineers in front of us, we didn't have Jeremiah there, we didn't have, well, it was a mess. And so there was talk about, oh, well, we should build another 2 million gallon tank right right next to the 2 million gallon tank we have, and then do something with the water line. There were just all these things thrown out. It was just mud against the wall, in my opinion.
So there's nothing solid out of what, no decisions were made that were binding in any way?
Is there a motion?
There was a motion, and the motion I think was something to the effect of rehab the 2 million
okay.
and do a water line in between the 2 million and the 1 million.
We got that actually, right, that's Jeremiah.
People didn't know that.
And, but, what that was is in order to move forward for a planning grant, so that.
Okay.
So we're time limited on the planning grant, and that's why all the hustles.
That's
were
why,
last minute.
that's why.
Right, okay. That makes-
And that, I hate that,
So let's see if I understand this correctly. So the big project, the big issue right now are the tanks. And in order to rehabilitate the 2 million gallon tank, you have to get the clock tank online.
Correct.
So the clock tank online is the first priority.
Because we have to take the 2 million gallon tank offline in order to rehabilitate.
Right, and
So
can
there was a lot of discussion about completely replacing the 2 million gallon tank with a brand new tank.
Nah, like
Yeah.
Jeremiah puts 37 years left in that tank.
So,
Why would you want
and this is why I got like all upset, because this is upset, I guess. But I pay for the water here. It's like if we're paying for these really expensive loans, all of our water rates are going to go up, and then we're gonna be like, oh shit. that sucks. So this is how Paige synthesized the decision. Trustees voted on August 25th to purchase a second 2 million gallon tank to replace the one that needs refurbishing, fix the roof on the 1 million, get the necessary pipeline installed between the 2 and the 1 using DOLA and state revolving funds. So I interpreted that as we're replacing the old 2 million gallon tank with a brand new one.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Just replacing it and
Can't
then
do that.
tearing it apart and not
Well,
even using it? I mean,
What trustee Marco brought up was the cost of a brand new 2 million gallon tank versus relining the one we got. And there were a lot of problems with lead-based paint on the outside of it. There were some issues about what are some of the residues that the divers found when they went in and did the inspection of the tank. So there's some questions about that. So in what Mary had done, our mayor, had gone out and tried to get bids on how much it would cost for a brand new tank, and she gave us a number of those to look at. And they weren't comparable to the cost of relining the one we had, and here's a brand new tank that's got 40 or 50 years. So the cost was not $7.3 million for these new tanks, it was like $2 million,
right.
or $1.5 million,
That's what I saw.
or things like that. So,
And is that real? Does that include everything?
well,
that
see,
has to
that's
do
the
with
problem, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what does it take to hook it up, how much plumbing, how much excavation, how much of a foundation do you have
Right.
to build?
It didn't
There's a
include
whole
the
bunch of moving parts
foundation.
that we don't know.
Okay.
What it costs to deconstruct this thing.
Yeah.
I did a
Take it
lot
down.
of research on that and forwarded some data from the Colorado Rural Water Association. And one thing is, I don't think we really have an accurate number on what the rehab costs are. SGM threw a number out there of
Yeah.
$1.3 million. I talked to several people and gave the town administrator the name of a company named Tenormec who makes the products. And they have a new product out now where it binds the lead, so you don't have to treat any lead that's in the tank as a hazardous waste material.
And the lead's on the outside now.
Yes,
Well, it's both. It's both. The
That's
paint is on the
actually-
in and outside.
There are three parts per billion lead, not in the paint, on the inside of the tank. It's not harmful to public health. It's on the base coat and in the welded seams. So the question, the average cost probably to reline that tank without lead abatement would be in the area of $800 to $1 million. That's an average cost. The other point too is when you're building a new tank, it does not cover the concrete foundation. Okay, if you were to put a new tank up there, you're for $2 million, maybe $2.5 million, depending on whether you're getting a glass line tank or a standard welded tank. A lot of the tanks that are being put together now are bolted tanks, which are not as strong as our all welded tank up there is quite valuable for what we're doing. And I think I talked to Jeremiah about getting, what's his name, Mike?
Right. Yeah. And so
And I'm not sure why we don't have 3 bids on that tank that we can choose from.
Dave's off the hook because it was his birthday, but Mike offered to come out and bring out some engineers, and I put it out, hey, who's available to meet with me and these guys? And nobody got back to me. So I shifted my focus, right? So to we're not really weighing our options here if people can't show up to those meetings.
Yeah,
You know,
well, no, wait a minute.
you weren't even invited, so you're off the hook too.
Well, communication has been not good, and that is an understatement. You know,
He
a
can
lot
say
of what's
that again.
happening to us on the board, like tonight, and I was telling Christina this is the first time I've seen someone from the town in 3 or 4 years here actually be honest about the problems we're dealing with the pipes and what's going on. It wasn't until I saw SGM and JDS hybrid reports that I actually started understanding that we got some problems because things have been glossed over so much. And there's been this firewall between the people on the ground like yourself and staff and the trustees. And this isn't new. This is something that's been going on for at least 2010.
And that was the purpose of the water committee, was to get a feedback loop all
Yes,
the way down to
exactly.
the staff so we could get real information.
Yeah.
So
So
that
no,
otherwise we're flying in the dark when we're sitting
well,
up there.
that's how we felt the other night. You know, when we were trying to do this hair on fire shit. Sorry for the language, but
And I don't
you know.
understand how trustees can approve something then we don't have complete information. They've approved a new tank.
Well, technically you can't. You
How
approve budgets.
how
You don't
can
actually, you're not actually
Well, no, wait.
administrative
We didn't
managers.
approve the purchase of all this stuff. All we did is approve a planning grant.
Okay.
A planning grant so that the engineers and the planners come in and start telling us what we really need and give us the data that we don't really have.
Oh.
That's as accurate. So my understanding the other night is what we really did is move forward with trying to get this planning grant.
Okay.
So we get our ducks in a row.
But it
Instead of just like-
includes the
Well,
mention of a new tank.
Yeah, it'll include mentions of those things, but that doesn't mean we have to go
Okay,
there. It
'cause
doesn't
that's
commit
not
us to
really
do those
practical,
things.
doesn't sound
What
like-
it does is say, we want a planning grant because these are the things we're dealing with, and this might be the way we're going after it. So this might be what we need as far as grants down the road. So Mary has to fill in those blanks.
So she's gonna write a grant to get money to plan.
Right.
I'm out of here. I can't believe this. This is nuts.
Well, that's actually how,
Wait, wait, wait.
that's how the process works.
No, that's crazy.
That
We
was-
need grants to fix our
Yeah,
problems,
but
not
here's
to
the thing.
plan.
The grants to fix the
Well,
problem.
require the planning grant first. It's like A before B before
Let
C.
me give you
Really?
an example.
Okay,
Our
I need
parks.
to
Let me
learn.
give you an example of our parks.
Okay.
We got a grant to make Paonia in Motion.
Okay.
So Paonia in Motion was a really fancy planning group out of Roaring Fork that came in and did this really fancy plan for the parks. But guess what? In order to build the trails from the high school onto the library and get that protection, if we didn't have that planning document done
Uh-huh.
that showed that this is what we want, they would never approve those grants.
Okay.
So if we don't have a planning grant with the engineering studies and all those things, the big grants won't come in. So I understand your frustration.
Okay,
Because
got
it's
it.
really has to think like, oh my God, government is hell. You know,
Well, it
seriously.
is. So if this is the way it has to be, okay.
Said it right, Dave.
So we're dealing with bureaucracy.
And
This
we're
has been
the-
the serving on this council has been the biggest source of stress in my life in 3 years. This has been the biggest source of
I
stress.
can only
Because
imagine.
I
Just
can't
coming
even
to
sleep on
meetings
nights
is a big
because of what I'm
source
trying
of
to think
stress.
about.
Who's in
It's crazy.
charge? There's been nobody in charge for a long, long time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not like, it's not just not been transparent, it's actually, we've been lied to. So just gonna
Yeah,
say
So
that.
I have
Yeah.
a couple of comments. I've written several grants and for smaller water companies, and what he says is absolutely correct. I mean, when you go out and get a grant, there are just not people out there willing to give you money, right? So we have to go find the source, and there are different agencies like the Department of Agriculture is a better source for large grants. They like to do stuff over $1 million. DOLA grants are out there for projects under $1 million. And then there's some long-term loan grants from SRF funding. But the point is, just what Dave said, when you show up, your chance of getting a grant is a whole lot better if you tell them, here's what I want, I got my map, and we want to do this, we're going to spend this amount of money, and we want this, we want your help on this. Your chance of getting a grant in that environment is pretty good.
But
So
thank you
we
for
haven't-
your frustration and wanting to throw in the
Yeah.
towel right away. because
No,
it's-
I'm not leaving,
seriously,
but I just
seriously,
don't
the thing I
understand.
like about that is
Yeah.
it's that push to let's get moving.
Yeah.
Let's make something happen instead of just sitting here wallowing.
Right, okay.
So the second piece of that is that relining, this is not a big engineering enterprise to reline a tank. We know what the tank is, we know how big it is.
And engineering's done already.
So
We just-
we're already done engineering and
We just
consultants.
we need to get 3 bids from people that are reputable,
Right.
and we don't have to have an engineer to do that.
It's a cuckoo house.
They'll come out here for free, write it on a piece of paper and bind an agreement, say, we'll paint your tank and do lead abatement for blah, blah. So we'll have 3 numbers, probably varying between 800,000 and 1.5 million, depending on what it is. Then the next thing you do is you say, okay, it's very interesting. We have all the money right now is in lead, lead abatement.
Okay.
We talked about the pigtails. I'll talk about that in a minute. So if we have say $1 million, we need money for $1 million. So we go to the CDPHE, who's getting $50 million this year for lead abatement, and say we have a lead problem in our tank, and we're also up against a timeline. By the way, I mean, I think Jeremiah didn't they put us on a timeline for getting that tank relined?
Not yet. It'll be after the sanitary survey for sure.
Yeah, and then sanitary surveys next year.
Yeah, and October we'll know our date.
Yeah, they'll hammer you on that. So my recommendation is to get some people, get some real numbers, and then from that point, then we can start going to grant people and putting your line in the water and seeing what you can find.
Okay, so what you need to apply for the grants to put, number one, the clock plant online, right? That's the first part?
Yep.
And so,
No, that we can, I think we can do that.
I mean, I would fund the clock internally.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one you
Yeah,
don't really
we
need a
can
big
do.
grant for, because according to Jeremiah's cost estimate, we can do that. But,
Add 30%.
I know, I was gonna talk about that. I'm gonna put it.
so we could manage that part of it.
But that will make the grant stronger too, because here
Right.
we've got our plant ready, you know, and then when we apply for the grant, they will be saying, well, this is what we've done.
So can we just go ahead and do that and start?
Yeah, we can start spending right now. And everything we spend towards this bigger project that we're gonna ask money for, they'll consider that our in-kind contribution.
Right.
So a lot of
Can
times,
we apply for the grant to reline the 2 mil tank while the work, you know, as soon as the work is started on the 1 million?
No, you can do them in parallel. If we contract, that'll be, because you don't have anything to do with the relining other than overseeing it. Right.
I just empty the trash rack at the wastewater plant, according to most people.
What?
So, we could do them both together, because Jeremiah and Jordan would be doing the 1 million gallon, and hopefully a
would
new
ever say that?
employee, and maybe a raise.
So I think the
I
place
know,
where, I think the place where the grant would be useful would be, we can bring the 1 million online, because it won't take very much. But the question down there is gonna be the hookup, and we're gonna need some engineering, some hydro studies. You know, is an altitude valve necessary? We talked about that tonight. Or can we do a ball valve down there? What sort of plumbing arrangements do we need to hook up that 8-inch line to the plant? The second thing, we need some engineering on the status of the cement line down there. If we don't have enough pressure I mean, if we end up with 20 pounds of pressure at the end of the distribution line, and we need to do something about that, either put a pump in there. So my issue would be that a planning grant for the distribution system out of clock would be a place to try and get $20,000 to $30,000. $20,000 and $30,000 and $40,000 grants are pretty easy to get. And so we go and say, we got a lead problem here, we need to do this, and we as a town are gonna do this, but we need some help doing these pieces. It's just a puzzle.
Okay.
And I think
So
that's,
the planning, so we apply for the planning grant. We can do that.
Well, and I also like the,
That's
like,
what the last vote was about
Yeah.
authorizing Mary to go after that planning.
Planning grant.
Yeah.
But the planning grant had to also have more specifics to it about what do you eventually want to do, what's the bigger picture, what's the 30,000-foot view, and that's why the discussion of the tanks came in.
So that's what I'm wondering, why didn't it include buying a new 2
Well,
million gallon
yeah,
tank?
Yeah, that's off
Because we-
outer
That-
space somewhere.
It's just filling in the blanks.
Did make sense,
Yeah,
okay.
and the planning grant will tell us what it is.
when Mary writes it, I don't know, is Mary gonna write that grant?
I don't know.
I really want Mary to see this, so
I
she
know.
can see sewer distribution springs,
Yeah.
not a tank.
Yeah.
Right? Let's like fix what we got, and
Yeah.
like in 30 years we get a new tank, and come up with a decommission strategy for that tank. Like, let's reuse that. Let's put art everywhere. Let's build tanks. I don't know anything with that metal. Let's just not advocate it.
Right, no, yeah, in 30 years,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
But Philip, I like that. Like, let's get planning money for how we get clock into distribution, and get rid of that
And also,
asbestos
in
in
that
that
planning
tank.
grant, could be rehabilitation of the roof. How do we make
Right.
that 1 million tank? I mean,
Trying to get.
Make it tight.
yeah.
So,
Trying to get communication going.
And so you got
Like,
lots
this
of-
is a real eye opener for all the council needs to see what you did tonight.
And it's not even a good presentation. Not even done.
Well,
No, it's
there's parts of it
fabulous.
that are
This
really
is
important.
fantastic information.
I think here's the parts that were really take homes for me. You listed some priorities about what you thought were important.
Yeah, I
You
got it.
showed us what streets, where the big problem areas are with our distribution lines and with our sewer lines. Those are things trustees need to see. And we're not aware of that. You know, we're not aware of that. And
This will
to
be-
get someone on the ground.
This will get reported out of the water committee, but you're right seeing the pictures worth 1,000
It's
words.
huge.
I think we should do our grant proposal in this format.
Yeah.
Like,
I've
Dolan,
done
like,
a number of them with GIS.
yeah.
So
it's-
did Mary say she couldn't make it here tonight?
I didn't-
mean, it's been ridiculous with meetings. We had to interview lawyers last night. Then tonight we have this. Then tomorrow we have a budget hearing. Then
Right.
Friday we were talking about how we're doing our meetings and
Right.
stuff. It's like we have 4 out of 5.
But I appreciate all of y'all for coming, because now you guys can be the ambassadors of this information, you know?
Yeah,
That's
that's
just
what-
where it starts.
Yeah, but I mean, this PowerPoint that you've shown us is really important. So even if it's just the slides of the streets,
Yeah, reported out.
lines that are
Next
not
meeting,
looking
which is
good and stuff,
September.
that's huge information.
Yeah, so that's why we
And also the
crossed
piece
it down.
about bringing the yellow down to priorities for how
I've got
good
the
springs
one
at the
email
bottom and
that's
good
minutes
ones
about
down
you,
at
you
the
notice
top.
any
I listed like 7 things there today.
Any new
Yeah.
ideas?
And you can narrow it down to that, so it's more of an executive summary and not having to get into the weeds, because we're not supposed to get into the weeds on this stuff. We're not supposed to, as council members, really know the nuts and bolts of what a PRB does and what a golf does, and whether it's right to do a PRB or not. But we should know where the big problems are, what we
Right.
need to have fixed.
Yeah, the streets.
So Jeremiah, didn't the town agree to hire SGM as a standby engineer?
No,
for
we
projects?
didn't.
No.
Or did we did not, or?
We
Well, there was like an
had-
RFQ that's supposed to go out and kind of
General
like,
contracting engineer.
Yeah, just
RFP.
on a per project basis.
Okay, so we're gonna need probably some engineer person to, if we write this grant, I mean, any ideas we got you?
so, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the exact question is, but in terms of like relining the 1 million gallon or the 2 million gallon tank, SGM has done like 95% of the engineering on that project.
Yeah, we don't need much more engineering than
Right.
that. I mean, I'm thinking more about the clock tower and the distribution.
Okay.
I mean, that's gonna take a little money and a little time.
And more of the whole like how we get the clock water into
Yeah,
into
but well,
distribution.
altitude valve, how do we get finished water?
Well, so the altitude valve project is finished. Again, I'm still like, you guys got to convince me that that's actually
Is that,
making some money
I don't
right
read
now.
that. Is that around? Is it in the SGM report?
No, Brendan from SGM sent it to me.
I
could-
know him, I'll call him.
Yeah,
Well, I
it's,
don't know if I'm
is
authorized.
it done? Yeah, it's done because that diagram that I showed you,
Right.
that's
Well,
the,
if you have it, can you send it to me?
yeah, I think
If it's allowable.
whatever. At this point, I don't think I can get in trouble.
So we need to write a grant to
You're
get
the most important person
planning.
in the
Yeah,
staff.
like engineers and
honestly.
everything, so we have a nice document that we take to the people with the big money.
In fact, why don't you put your application in to
That's a
run this
normal
town?
process. You just walk into the big grant people
I
and
vote
say,
for
hey,
you.
for the money, they'll just buy it.
Seriously.
Well, I mean,
Then
right.
why
I
you
did
gotta
seriously
do
consider it,
where's your
but
plan?
I know
I mean, is Mary a grant?
the work has to come home with you all the time. I can't do it to my family right now.
Well, it
Yeah,
hasn't
bunch of
for
it
the,
hasn't done.
anyway,
Some
got
doesn't
it.
take much work.
To do it
Some of
right.
it,
I know, I agree. You would do it right.
On the council, we've had these grants come in, that weren't things that we really wanted, just, it was easy money to go after, and so people were writing these grants that weren't following the priorities of the council. And so we finally tried to reel it in and say, wait a minute, if you're gonna write a grant, you gotta ask the council first. You gotta tell us how much we're gonna have to spend in kind, how much it's gonna cost us, what the grant's for, and whether this fits our priorities. So that's what we've asked every time that there's been an idea about applying for a grant. We're trying to discipline the staff and whoever is writing a grant to do those 5 things to get approval from the council before they start spending all the time writing it. Now, we know for water, we definitely gotta write grants. for
I mean, do
water.
we need to hire a professional grant writer?
I felt we did. I would rather I'd feel more confident if we had a professional working on this.
And
There
how
are really
much does
good
that
ones out there.
cost, do we know?
They polish it a lot. It costs
We're
us
getting
money.
an administrator.
If we have no,
5,000, between 5 and
Isn't that
10,000.
much?
That might be well worth it.
Yeah.
It might be, it might be.
So Jeremiah, tomorrow at 10, I'm going in with Cindy on budget for water. I've got your priority list here, which is good. I have your numbers, which are preliminary. Do you want, and this is like the first cut. Do you want me to just fudge those up? What do you want?
Yeah, fudge us up, but also let me finish this. Let me give me
Go for it.
7 more
Thank you.
minutes because there's more. There's more that we need to budget for. And so okay, JDS, they said, all right, it's going to be really expensive to give us more storage, but what we can do is we can get more water in our pipes to the treatment plants. So our problem is we're just spilling water that we could be treating, right, at the treatment plants, basically. So that's a synopsis of what they're talking about here. They say, go look for all the broken pipes, and then go check out the springs and see if we can put in bigger infiltration galleries. Obviously, the number they threw out to put in another 32 like bigger infiltration galleries, like that's 1.5, but maybe focus on a few. So what to know here? Okay, all those red dots is where there was exposed pipe or a broken asset, like an air vac or something like that. This over, like our Gilwick pipeline, which is a 4-inch steel pipeline, we drove by the spot. I don't even know how it was still connected, and it, like, a little bit of an exaggeration, but the pipe almost looked like a pretzel. It was like bent like this. I have no idea how it didn't rupture, disconnect, but like that, we could very easily be losing all of our spring water because of those vulnerabilities up in the spring system, right? Those are huge vulnerabilities. So all those reds are where there's exposed pipe or something's broken. The two things that I wanted to point out about the length of these pipes, so I'll just jump to the next slide. So Lake Fork, this pipeline here, and it stops right here, and then it splits and then goes down here. Apparently, the town has an agreement with Rober that we will be responsible for that. Rober's pipeline too, actually. We're responsible for their pipeline to the Rober Reservoir. But the original agreement was that we would allocate, I don't know, $15,000 to $20,000 a year to replace 1,400 to 1,500 feet of pipe every year. So like we install it and then we go back to the very beginning and we start. That was the original agreement. Steve Kostler says it's never happened.
No, I remember it ever happened.
Right. So
it didn't make a whole lot of sense, actually.
So, and I don't know what kind of legal liability that could put the town in. Like, I don't know if Rober can go and like.
Do we have a signed contract with them?
Apparently, yeah. I haven't seen it. It's around. Steve Kostler will happily give it to me. I just need to make that happen. So I just wanted to point that out. That pipeline, and you can see, it's some of our raw collection pipeline is PI, was it IPI? Oh yeah, here's the irrigation grade pipe, and it's not appropriate. It's like, but that's not everything. This pipe in particular on Lake Fork is like, I don't know what it's made out of, but it's bomber. It's like some PVC that was created before I was born, back when there was when we had resources to create things nice. So even though it's exposed, even a cow stepping on it, I think would be fine. I just wanted to throw that out there. But there are vulnerabilities in our spring pipelines.
Some of it is bomb-proof, you're saying.
Bomb-proof?
Some of it is bomb-proof, you're saying.
Yeah, it's like, I couldn't even believe how strong it was.
So you found all of these, or this is?
So yeah, okay.
This is what you personally? Yeah,
those red dots are me and Jordan going out with the U.S. Forest Service. The U.S. Forest Service, they were planning a prescriptive burn of that entire area, so they needed to see all of our springs.
Okay.
And so, while we're driving along, she was plotting it out for us, and then she shared the data with me.
That's awesome.
They burned up that pipe once already. Yeah,
Whoops.
burned.
Yeah, and the blue lines that you see, the spring pipeline, that was U.S. Forest Service. It's not totally accurate. Like Lamborn's here, and you see the pipe. Anyway, it's off by a couple meters, but it does the job right now. So low-hanging fruit to get more water to clock. This box right here, outside of this box, 20 foot of pipe is clogged. Very easy to go up there, dig it out, 4 feet down, pull that pipe out, put a new pipe in, and then I'm still a little fuzzy because it was like long, hot day, and there's I can't even remember, 5 or 6 springs coming into these two diversions.
That's a lot of water flow to do that.
Yeah, right through here. So this is clogged, low-hanging fruit. We could very easily get that done in 2 or 3 days. We just have to drive a backhoe up there and be ready to deal with it. And I really wanted to do that before this winter. before winter. Yeah, that was something I wanted to do with you actually, you and your volunteers,
talked about
because
it.
there's a lot of cleanup to happen up there
Those
too.
guys are ready to go. I just haven't gotten the green light when we can go up there. You just tell me when.
Yeah, I'm trying to,
I mean, October's good.
because it's a little cooler.
Yeah.
Now this is that Stevens Spring. So the one spring that we do have developed, it's like right around where my cursor is. It's actually clogged. I don't know the state of the pipeline. I know it's piped from there over to that box we were just looking at. So that's something that's like more low-hanging fruit. We just unclog it and check out that pipe and get more spring water down. This is also that area that I was saying is like wet. I mean, that is like such a good productive spring. So if we were to invest in an infiltration gallery, I would say that one. The only caveat is we don't know what our decree is. We don't know what our rights to that are. It's a big question mark, even though we have it developed. And then this is the big one. This is the one for the budget, Dave. So what we have right now is our Lake Fork water, which is what we're sharing with Rover, which is about a half a cubic foot or 224 gallons a minute. It goes down to it connects with the German Creek Springs and then goes to this box. This box right here, 20% of every drop of water that goes into that box goes to a rancher down the way.
Right.
So basically that rancher is getting 20% of our share of Lake Fork water. They're not entitled to it. It was like when there was a lot of water, it was just the easiest way to plumb it. And we really need our Lake Fork water to bypass that German Creek box. Because that rancher is entitled to 20% of the German Creek Spring allotment.
Okay, but he's not entitled
But
to
not
the
the
Lake
extra
Fork
stuff coming
stuff,
in.
right?
Not the Lake Fork, that's also going into it.
Yeah.
And that's like 20, and it's 20, he gets 20% of it.
So you gotta bypass it.
Yeah, and so this is not we're not going to necessarily do it just like this. This is just a representation. And I talked to Steve Kostler, and more or less, I just need to get a contour. This is why I need LiDAR data, 1 foot contour maps, because I could actually give you a legit, like, we're going to run this line right here because that's the safest grade. But so this needs to be surveyed. Like, how do we bypass that German Creek splitter box so we're not giving up our water to that rancher? And I don't know how to even come up with a number for that because I don't know the actual linear feet of pipe even, you know. But I felt like that was an important thing to really call out. It's like, yeah, like somebody else is getting all over our water, and so that there is more, but I think that's enough for now.
The locals do that all the time on their own. They say, oh, by the way, can I split off from yours because he's taking my water? And
Yeah.
I mean, this happens
Yeah.
in neighborhoods, yeah.
And then I've been just trying to hammer this point. I know Philip's in my corner on it of just like, so I was able to build this with ArcGIS Pro Basic. They have a standard package. It's $2,000 more a year for the licensing, more than this. But it'll give us the capabilities to do the utility network extension. And what that would look like is like, so this plant right here, Lamborn, I would be able to take the diagram that the engineers gave me and do a digital representation, and then we would have, like, to the cent, the value of our entire assets of our water wastewater system. And so when we're trying to come up with these planning grants, or we're trying to understand what our 30-year financials look like, it'll be on this. It'll be real time. We can also do we can track the runtime of pumps so that we know when we need to do maintenance on them, so we can anticipate replacement costs and things like that.
And that costs
so
$2,000 per year?
Yeah, it's $2,700 per year for the licensing. And I know it sounds like a lot, but with our enterprise budget, it's like it's a drop in the bucket for what we'll get out of it. You know, like what some towns are doing, instead of hiring engineers to do as-built designs of the system, usually they'll do an as-built, like what's in the ground now, okay, and they'll spend like a quarter to half of their budget doing that when we could just build it in this. And this is this is accurate to like, I don't know what.
Subsonic, you can get subsonic. So this is the language of utilities now. In the old days, we used to have paper maps and all that kind of stuff. Most modern utilities now, every workman in the pit has an iPad that has access to this information. If you change the valve, you take a picture of it, it gets annotated onto the geo-reference coordinates.
Well, like what I would love to do is be able to click on this little icon right here, and it gives me the whole history of that tank, when it was last maintained, all the pictures, and it's like,
Oh my God.
like it'd be a repository of everything in our water system. So,
And what do you call that? What's the name of that?
so it would be ArcGIS Pro Standard
Yeah, I
license.
budgeted for the basics, so I'll
RGIS,
re-budget for the standard.
And
There's another couple levels above that. You don't feel.
I don't know because with the standard license, it'll give us the network utility extension and the toolbox. So like all of our hydrants, for instance, the way they do it is like, so we spent a bunch of money hiring JDS to do these hydrologic modeling for us. That's standard in this technology. We're like, oh, we want to see what our fire flows are. Let's just run, and it does it, you know, or okay, what happens if this PRV is not working? Well, there's our transit analysis. It'll tell us exactly where it'll bust out. So
pretty nice modeling.
Yeah, no, because what it does is it takes the material, it takes the pipe, it knows the elevation, it can figure out the physics, it can figure out like the friction loss and all that stuff, and that's just what the engineers are doing. They just they've had time to.
No, they're just sitting in front of the same thing you're sitting in front of.
Pretty much, yeah. But except they have and it's the same thing with like website designers and stuff. They really just they buy a 50 pack of the same template and then they sell it to customers.
So how does that work? You said for licensing. So in other words, are you renting a system
Essentially.
basically?
A lease like
And how does it get programmed initially? Is there?
It's already ready to go. I wish I could show you ArcGIS Pro, but there's a desktop version
And then the other nice thing is that all that data lives in the cloud, so you're not managing a server. All that stuff is out there, safe as
We have a server here, but I don't know if RGS.
Well, no, this is an interesting thing. We can use their servers for our geo databasing, but we can also have our server in-house.
Yeah.
And we probably need to replicate it so we can always.
That's called a hybrid cloud. Yeah.
So is our equipment ready to be plugged into this, and would it all work? I mean, it sounds like we've got.
So all these lines you see right here, these are all. Let's see if I can click. Yeah, see, so check this out. SGM did this for us. So polyvinyl chloride, 8-inch potable water line. A lot of this data, like the skeleton is done. But let me show you something over here. This
engineering firm came in, they ran these little cars all over town for the last year and a half, 2 years. And they've been doing an analysis of what type of pipe is in the ground, how long has it
Well,
been.
we have all the
and
data
all that stuff's in
necessary.
it's incomplete. Like for instance, I have drawings. So up there, you see this area right here?
Yeah.
I have drawings of how all the pipes and the valves actually interact. And what I learned is like, in theory, we can fill the 1 million gallon treatment plant by opening up a valve right here and opening this up, and then it'll backfill, right? Now, had I not like had a conversation with Travis and then found the diagram, I totally could have effed that up, right? And then like caused all kinds of problems. So that's what's so great about say I go away or Jordan goes away, the next person who at least can like understand data can be up to speed like in a week.
We never did that before.
Yeah.
We never had that kind of
It was in the head.
data to. Well, the technology wasn't quite there.
No, totally. Even
I
ArcGIS
gotta
just
go
wasn't.
So are you going to need a Trimble handheld unit? What are you using?
We have a Trimble. My cell phone will link right to it, so I can go and map everything out. I even have the app already, so I just have to like sync.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of information will help
Do you
us
want-
get the planning grant,
wanna
the
come in
grants,
for-
No,
and
exactly.
all of that.
Wrap, like it's already done. It's
Yeah.
already live.
Alright.
Yeah. So
Okay.
now,
So put that in the budget.
okay, and then walk away with this. After knowing that, how would you spend $5 million? Right?
Easy.
I'm going to Bali.
You start with 10.
I figured. Yeah, I know. I figured I should have made that 10. All right. All right, that's it, y'all.
Awesome.
You did an awesome job.
Thank you.
Yeah,
For my
really.
first meeting,
I
that
know.
was amazing.
You got the best
Oh my
download.
God,
You
that was
didn't-
fantastic.
So,